Welcome back. We begin with Burkina Faso, where 35 people, mostly women, have been killed in a militant attack in northern Somme province. In a statement, the military said 7 soldiers and 80 militants were also killed in the double attack. Officials said a large group of terrorists simultaneously attacked the military base and the civilian population in Arbenda. Communication Ministry said out of 35 killed civilians, 31 were women. President Roch Kabore has declared 48 hours of national mourning in the country. No group has yet claimed responsibility for this attack. This is one of the deadliest assaults in nearly 5 years of violence in the West African country. In Libya, 4 people have been killed as a projectile exploded in a vegetable market in Tripoli. Rescue officials say 6 others were wounded in the attack in the city's suburb. The UN-recognized Government of National Accord has accused Khalifa Haftar's Libyan National Army of carrying out the attack. Haftar's forces made no immediate comment on the strike. Libya has been battered by escalating violence, unrest, and political instability since the fall of dictator Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. In Algeria, massive protests continue despite a day of mourning for the deceased army chief. The country's military head Ahmed Gaid Salah died of a heart attack on Monday, and government called for 3 days of mourning. Defying the call, protesters held their demonstration against the ruling elite. Raising no slogans against Salah, protesters said they are not against one person but the whole system. The army chief's funeral will be held today, and his body will be buried in western Algiers. Moving on to Pakistan, which has rejected a U.S. State Department report on religious freedom in the country. The Foreign Office says Pakistan's designation is reflective of selective targeting of countries. It questioned the credibility of the report, which failed to designate India despite religious violence. It added that Pakistan is a pluralistic country where all minorities enjoy complete religious freedom. A fact-finding report has revealed that Indian police used brutal force against the students of Aligarh Muslim University. The report is compiled by activists, academics, journalists, and lawyers who interviewed students last week. The report said police beat students indiscriminately while using rubber bullets, tear gas, and stun grenades. It also holds the university administration and authorities responsible for failing in their duty to protect the campus and its residents. It accused them of inviting armed police personnel into the campus. Revealing his Islamophobia, a minister of the Indian ruling party, Vijay Rupani, said the country's Muslims can migrate to 150 countries. Meanwhile, BJP's Muslim leader Shazia Ilmi said she is being sidelined over her faith. Ilmi said she has been denied all access pass to party events and key meetings. More from India. The Indian cabinet has approved $553 million for a population survey next year, despite protests over the citizenship law. Authorities say the updated National Population Register will be a comprehensive list of all residents. However, critics say it will be a list from which doubtful citizens will be asked to prove they are Indian. 25 people have been killed in protests over the citizenship law, which is being seen as anti-Muslim. In Yemen, 12 aid agencies in the town of Al-Thaila have stopped work after attacks on their buildings. The latest attack was carried out on the Oxfam office, followed by a rocket attack on the building of the International Rescue Committee last week. The UN has called the situation an alarming escalation amid media campaigns against aid organizations. A civil war has gripped the country since 2014, when the Houthi government ousted President Abd al-Rabbu Mansour Hadi's government. According to the United Nations, around 80% of the population needs humanitarian assistance. Iraqi anti-government marchers have stepped up their protests. Authorities in Baghdad are increasingly paralyzed as they seek a way out of the current political impasse. Demonstrators took to Tahrir Square, marking clear their opposition to names touted by the establishment to fill the post of Prime Minister. Portraits of these candidates, marked by a huge red cross, were displayed on the buildings and tents in the protest area. Once again, main avenues and roads in cities in the south of the country were blocked. Entrances to schools, universities, and government buildings in the capital were also blocked. Anger over Iran's stranglehold on Baghdad's political system has also helped propel an unprecedented protest movement. Protesters are calling for a boycott of goods from Iran. Turkey says it is talking to Russia to reach a new ceasefire after increased bombardment in Syria's Idlib province. Airstrikes by government and Russian warplanes are forcing thousands to flee Idlib and find refuge in Turkey. According to one Turkish aid group, at least 120,000 displaced persons are heading towards the border. More in this report.
The Turkey-based Humanitarian Relief Foundation is one of the few aid organizations working in Idlib. Video footage released by the NGO showed aid workers setting up tents near the Syrian border.
We fled under the bombardment and shelling. We have nothing except God's mercy. We are homeless. Nobody gave us anything. We are sitting here with our children. We have 5 widows in my family. We only have God's mercy.
Most of these migrants are headed to Turkey, which already hosts 3.7 million Syrian refugees. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has already said his country can't take more people.
If the violence towards the people of Idlib does not stop, this number will increase even more. In that case, Turkey will not carry such a migrant burden on its own. The negative impact of pressure we will be subjected to will be something that all European nations, especially Greece, will also feel.
On Tuesday, Russian airstrike killed 8 Idlib residents, including 5 children. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said strikes hit a school, sheltering displaced people. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says Russian and government airstrikes displaced 30,000 people in the last 1 week alone. 1,000 civilians have been killed since the Idlib offensive was launched in April. With Moscow and Damascus refusing to back down and Ankara refusing to take refugees, the bombing of Idlib may be the biggest humanitarian disaster of 2019.
A Moscow court has extended the detention of former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan until 29 March on espionage charges. Whelan, who holds U.S., British, Canadian and Irish passports, was detained in December 2018 and accused of spying. Last week, Deputy Chief of Mission Bart Gorman called on Russia to free Whelan. He was detained by agents from Russia's Federal Security Service from a Moscow hotel. Moscow says he was caught with a computer flash drive containing classified information. Whelan says he was set up in a sting operation and thought the drive given to him by a Russian acquaintance contained holiday photos. He has been held in pre-trial detention while investigators look into his case. Moving on to the U.S., whose President Donald Trump has brushed off North Korea's warning of a Christmas gift. He said the U.S. would deal with it very successfully amid concerns that Pyongyang might be preparing for a missile test. Earlier this month, Pyongyang warned Washington of a possible Christmas gift. The warning comes after Kim Jong-un gave the U.S. a year-end deadline to propose new concessions in denuclearization talks. Talking to reporters at his Mar-a-Lago resort, President Trump said he will see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Let's see. Maybe it's a nice present. Maybe it's a present where he sends me a beautiful vase as opposed to a missile test, right? I may get a vase. I may get a nice present from him. You don't know.
U.S. military commanders say that North Korea's response could involve the testing of a long-range missile. It is something Pyongyang has suspended, along with nuclear bomb tests, since 2017. Moving on to Hong Kong now, where police fired tear gas at thousands of protesters after scuffles in shopping malls as anti-government rallies escalated into chaos on Christmas Eve. The protest started in June against plans to allow extradition to mainland China. The bill was withdrawn in September, but demonstrations continue and protesters seek full democracy and an inquiry into police actions. Protesters inside the malls threw umbrellas and other objects at police, who responded by beating some demonstrators with batons. Many families with children had congregated in the same area to view the Christmas lights. Police have arrested more than 6,000 people since protests escalated in June. The Civil Human Rights Front has applied to stage another march on New Year's Day. Welcome back. In Chile, over 120 houses have been destroyed by fast-moving forest fires in the city of Valparaiso. Mayor Joe Sharp said power was cut to about 90,000 residences in the vicinity as a precautionary measure. The mayor said firefighters are trying to wrestle the fires in Roconte and San Roque areas. Authorities said over 400 acres of grassland have already been ravaged by the fires. Rescue workers are employing both land and aerial resources to extinguish the spreading fires. Strong winds and high temperatures are aggravating the situation in one of Chile's largest cities and a popular tourist destination. Venice has been hit by another high tide on Christmas Eve, a month after the worst flooding in 50 years. Even as the city recovers from November's devastation, water levels rose the day before Christmas, with the tide peaking at 139 centimeters. Venice suffered its worst week of flooding in mid-November, recording 4 tides above 140 centimeters in just 7 days. According to Mayor Luigi Borognos, last month's floods caused around €1 billion in damages. Christians around the world are celebrating Christmas today. Pakistani Christian community illuminated homes and churches on Christmas Eve to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. Bishops and the Christian clergy led special services at their respective churches across the country. Tech giant Google has launched a doodle with colorful blinking lights and the decoration balls to commemorate the festive season. In almost every country, food takes center stage on Christmas as friends and family celebrate love, life, and togetherness. Christians all over the world are celebrating Christmas, including those in the Muslim world. This includes countries that are currently at peace and others that have been ravaged by years of war. More in this report.
Shops in the Islamic Republic of Iran were full of Santa hats and the streets lined with Christmas trees. The country is home to around 300,000 Christians. Despite Iran's reputation as a strict Islamic theocracy, minorities are still able to celebrate their festivals quite openly.
During Christmas and New Year days, we mostly have happy gatherings and ceremonies in our special clubs, such as Ararat. We basically hold our New Year ceremonies in such places.
In nearby Syria, things are less festive. Most of the country's Christian population fled the country during the rise of ISIS. The Isra village near the Jordanian border was once mostly Christian. Now it's practically a ghost town, where Christians still fare, congregating in large numbers.
There are areas now where there is not one Christian. I don't know how long the situation will last, and there are villages or areas inhabited only by a few elderly people. In the city of Dara, about half of the Christian population has left.
Meanwhile, Israel is stopping the Christians of Gaza from visiting their holy sites. Palestinian border officials say Israel has issued 316 permits allowing Christians to enter Israeli territory.
We were officially informed yesterday that they gave 55 more permits, but there are still 950 Christians in Gaza who are waiting for permits to celebrate Christmas in Bethlehem.
Around 5% of the Middle East's population is Christian, with most of them subscribing to Eastern Orthodox Christianity.
It's going to be a bleak Christmas for migrant families stranded in Mexico. Most of them in violent and crime-infested border cities like Ciudad Juarez and Tijuana. As the immigration debate continues in the United States, these families hope 2020 will be a better year. More in this report.
No room at the inn. Migrant families face a bleak Christmas at the Mexican border city of Ciudad Juarez. Maria Shan traveled towards the United States from Guatemala. The desperate mother says she just wants a better life for her son. Her case for asylum hits U.S. courts in the March 2020.
I fled my country with my baby. I never thought that I would be returned to Juarez. I am waiting to go to US with my baby to give the best life to my son so he can study.
Some migrants have left their children behind in the hope of being able to send money from the United States.
I'm sad because I really haven't been this far from my family before. Each year at Christmas, I was with my children, eating beans. I came here with hope for an opportunity in the United States, but the reality is very difficult.
These migrant families hope that 2020 can bring them some respite.
There will be no Christmas Mass at Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral, which was gutted by a fire in April this year. The last time Mass was cancelled at the iconic medieval cathedral was in the year 1803. More in this report.
Parisians will observe Mass at the Saint Germain Auxerrois Church this year. Meanwhile, Notre Dame's rector, Archpriest Patrick Chauvet, has given French Catholics assurances that the cathedral will be open to the public soon.
For every believer of Notre Dame's, I think it will be a sign of hope to say, let's be patient, let's wait. The Virgin Mary waited for the birth of her son. We are waiting for the rebirth of the cathedral.
For now, the cathedral remains buried under its melted scaffolding. Removing it will require a special crane, which is currently being assembled.
We need to try and remove the scaffolding. This is the difficult part. It weighs several tons, so we have to make sure it does not fall on the vaults that were not damaged.
Once assembled, the crane will measure 80 meters, but it's unlikely the cathedral will be fit to host next year's Christmas Mass either.
Pakistan is celebrating the 144th birth anniversary of its founder, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. The day started with the change of guard ceremony at the Jinnah's mausoleum in Karachi. In his message on the occasion, President Arif Alvi said Jinnah envisioned a separate identity for the subcontinent's Muslims. He said the acumen of his vision can be witnessed today with the prevailing conditions in India and occupied Kashmir. Prime Minister Imran Khan said the best way to pay homage to Qaid is to adhere to his principles of unity, faith, and discipline. He said the world is witnessing the perversion of the so-called secular outlook of India with discrimination against minorities. US President Donald Trump says he and Chinese President Xi Jinping will have a ceremony to sign the first phase of the trade deal agreed to this month. Earlier in December, US Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer said both countries would sign the agreement in the first week of January. Beijing has not yet confirmed specific components of the deal that were released by US officials. Talking to reporters in Florida, President Trump said both countries want to get the deal done.
When we get together, we will do, but we'll have a quicker signing because we want to get it done. The deal is done. It's just being translated right now. Okay?
Last week, a spokesman for China's Commerce Ministry said the details would be made public after the official signing. Now moving on to Saudi Arabia, which and Kuwait signed a deal to resume pumping at 2 oil fields in a shared zone. Production at the Khafji and Wafra oil fields has halted in 2014 to a bilateral disagreement. In a tweet, Kuwait's oil minister Khalid Al-Fadl says the agreement includes the resumption of production in the divided zone. Kuwait state media reports the two countries also signed an accord on the demarcation of land and maritime borders in the neutral zone, but it did not give any details on the contents of the deal, which likely revolves around amending previous border agreements between the two nations. The two oil fields were pumping some 500,000 barrels per day before production was halted. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.